Next, we're going to move on to really start doing our cross section, and I'll explain that with this yellow sheet here in a moment. All right. All right, you guys. If you have not moved on to read direction number 3 here, please do so. Pause the video and read it, and then I will try to walk you through it so that we can get this guy going. Now you'll notice in your packet, if you flip through it, you have all these documents I'm going to be looking at, including the well site data and the topo profile or geologic cross section that are on the yellow sheet. The yellow sheet is just there because I guess ideally I would like you to fill this guy out in the white packet, which means so you don't have to flipping page back and forth. On the yellow sheet you should be looking at this guy, okay, the well site data. But right now I want you looking at number 3 here. Okay, so pause if you need to on page 16 here, or if we're ready, here we go. So it says, to continue your assessment and construct a topographic profile and geologic cross-section of the spill area. This will help you to determine the slope, okay, so flat, the slope of the land and subsurface formations to project the probable route of the pollutant as it moves towards the wells. So it's spilled on the surface in the gravel area, we know that from map 1, and then it's going to move in a certain direction, either east or west, okay, because we're going to be looking at a cross-section that goes east-west. And we need to be able to figure out which way it's going to go. So we're going to map the subsurface data. So you can begin, lost my spot. You will begin by plotting the position of the known wells in the spill area from county survey records. So that's map 2. So map 2, no, map 2, map 2. Map 2 here, get this guy out of the way, is the same as map 1, except now we have all of our wells on here. Okay, our spill is still right here, pointing to this dot that's not labeled. And we have wells 1, 2, 13, 14, 15 in the gravel area. M is not a water well. We'll get to that, and I think it's an oil exploration well. But then we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and another lettered well, N, down here. Okay. So it says you'll also discover that the State Geological Survey Office has a well log record submitted by all well and oil well drillers for wells drilled in the area, which means when they drill a well, they have to submit the data for what they hit at certain depths. From these well logs, you transfer the info on the surface elevations and formation boundaries for each well to Table 2. Okay. The well site data. So right now I want you to, well, hold on. In the historic records you find that the water and well drillers for well sites 1 to 15 stopped drilling once they penetrated the aquifer. They did not drill deeper to the granite. Therefore there's no direct information about the granite's depth at these sites. However, oil drillers show that 2 exploratory wells were drilled in the area during an oil exploration project. That's M and N. And it says specifically they go to 930 for M and 885 for N, where they hit the granite. So, get this guy out of here. We don't need to look at map 2. We are focused solely on, you know what, I'm going to get rid of that guy back there, solely on this guy in our white packet. And we should also be looking at this guy, but on the yellow sheet, so we do not have to move back and forth. So I need to take this data here and simply plot it on my map. Okay, I have elevation in feet on the left-hand side of my map. I have my wells labeled up here, and you notice well 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, and 9 are stacked on each other because if we look at map 2, they're all in a row. Okay, they're all sort of in line with each other. So surface elevation. First, we're going to do the surface here. Well 1, the surface is at 9, what did I say, 67? 967 at well 1. So I find well 1, or I find 967 about here, and I go over and plot it. Okay, I put a little dot. I'm not drawing any lines yet. But I'm going to go through all of this and plot the surface elevation. Okay. Then I'm going to go over and do the sandy clay and see where it says not present. That's because if I look at well 1 and 2 here, remember it was not present there. I have to go look at my map 1, okay, to see what was at the surface. And I will plot my sandy clay. And I'll do the same for gravel and clay and so on. And so what I should end up getting is a map where I'll have my surface somewhere through here. And then I see granite gets pretty deep, 930 and all the way down to 885 over here at N. So it's going to come way down like this and so on. And I will eventually connect these. I and Mr. A have some keys for these, transparencies that we're just going to lay over so we can see if you have it right or if you have mistakes. We want to make sure you guys get this correct before you move any further. All right? I don't want this tripping you up and making it so that you can't correctly answer questions just because you drew it incorrectly. This is just plotting points. This is graphing, some simple graphing, you guys, okay? So take your time, do it in pencil first, not colored pencil. We'll eventually get to colored pencil, but make sure you do this in pencil first. I'm attaching onto the back end of this a quick note from Mr. A, maybe to help clarify some things.
Alright, for those of you that are now in this process of constructing this portion of your map right here, because over here you have your elevation, surface elevation, you have your sandy clay, you have your gravel kind of coming down this way, you have your clay coming down this way, and then you have your granite line, which literally is running from here straight down here. You only have 2 dots. The first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to look at a map from a previous page, which is map number 2 right here, in order to construct your actual surface / geologic profile for this particular area right here. You're going to have to look at what this map has to offer. First, you're going to have to look right in this section right here, dealing with elevations 980. 980 is the elevation of the actual granite. The granite eventually is going to be submerged and actually go underneath the ground, because the clay layer, which is right here, the clay layer itself actually is now on the surface. So take you ahead back here. So at 980, which is the elevation right here, at 980, your granite is going to be connected all the way down, I believe, to where your plot point is somewhere around 940, 930 at well 15, or at well M. I'll have to look at the data table for that. Granite 930 at well M. So at well M, which is located right here at surface elevation of 930, this is where you'll connect the dot from granite to the granite outcrop, because that's the slope of the actual granite. The second part is figuring out what the surface elevation and the surface type of soil is leading down to well 15. If you take a look back, you're going to see at 980 there's clay on the actual surface, and that clay has an elevation at 972 where the pond is located. The pond is roughly about halfway between where the granite outcrop at 980 goes underneath the ground and where well 15 is located. So using your colored pencil for your clay, you're going to construct the surface of clay to the elevation of 972, and also draw in the pond, which is halfway between the granite outcrop at 980 and the surface elevation of 970 for well 15. So the pond is going to be somewhere in here. The clay, using your colored pencil, is going to slope down to the actual pond at 972. Now the question is, what about the surface to the east of the pond, right over here in this area? What is the actual soil type? What you'll see is the actual clay is going to be submerged and go underneath the ground, and it's going to turn itself into the gravel. And that is located roughly halfway between the pond and where well 15 is. So in this particular area, you have your pond at an elevation of 972. Halfway between where the pond is and well 15 is where your clay is going to go underneath the ground, and you'll connect it to your clay layer. And then you'll have gravel running on the surface all the way till you reach well 15. If you have any questions, feel free to ask myself or Mr. Fuzek.
All right, at this point, you should have your geologic cross-section completely done right here in your white packet. If you do not, pause this video. Okay, you've got to get that done, and you've got to get it initialed or checked by Mr. A or myself. Okay, and then we can add some color to it to distinguish between the different layers of material. So, I want to walk through, though, at this point, because if you're still watching this, you're done with that cross-section. You're ready to rock. So, looking at number 4 here, then. Review the info presented earlier on constructing these cross-sections. Remember that when constructing the profile, you first need to establish relative position of each known elevation site. To save time, we've already plotted the well site locations on worksheet 1. We've gone ahead and we made that sucker. So really, we're looking at 5. All right? Here's one where people always miss. They don't realize they're supposed to do something here. With the surface, because they don't read it. With the surface elevation data found on map 2 and in data table 2, plot the surface elevations for known points on worksheet 1. Done. Connect the points with a smooth line to the west and east to construct the topographic profile and answer the questions that follow. So, you should be moving along with me. As we move through these questions, and I don't have these sheets, you should be looking here. Okay? Each question, as we look at this, now read it all. Don't just assume, okay, I see what I got to answer. Make sure you answer each part of each question. Flip back to your maps as you need to. Use your geologic cross-section. Use your resources to answer these questions. We're not necessarily looking for one-word answers. Okay, now the first one. What is the general direction of the slope of the land? That's pretty simple. Okay, that is probably just a few-word answer. But some of these, we're looking for a bit of an explanation. Okay, think about this. Some critical thinking. We need you to solve this problem. So answer all those questions on page, what is this, 20 here. And it says number 6 there, you're going to use those colored pencils. Shade it in. That's fine. Then when you flip to the back page, 21, page 21, continue to answer these questions. Okay? Good answers. Kind of, if you see more space given, we're looking for a little bit more depth in that answer of yours, okay? With this finishes up part 1, and you can roll into part 2. Be careful, because in part 2, there are some sort of, I don't want to say hidden questions, but they're within the reading, and it might ask you to go back and do something on map 2. In other words, you're going to have to draw the plume on map 2. You got to make sure you do that. But we'll point those out. We want to make sure you've had a chance to attempt every question, but part of that is following those instructions. We spent some time talking about this. Let's make sure we do it now, okay? So when you're done with this, you can roll into the video for part 2, and it will walk you through part 2. That's why these videos are a touch longer, okay? Good luck.